All right, so hello museum families and welcome to RBCM at Home Kids, a play date through screens across British Columbia and the world. The previous sessions are recorded and you can find them on our Royal BC Museum YouTube page. My name is Chris O'Connor and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. The museum and my home is on the territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. I'm an uninvited guest on this territory and grateful to live, learn, and raise a family on this land. So here at the Royal BC Museum, we have core galleries. The galleries with the woolly mammoth and the old town, and then we have special exhibitions. Just recently we opened a new exhibition about the art of Emily Carr. Emily Carr used to live right down the street from where the Royal BC Museum is now. She's a very creative and adventurous artist and writer that inspired people around the world. And speaking of around the world, she also traveled far from Victoria to learn about painting and learn how to paint in places like France and other places too. But being far from home, many of us then also like to send postcards back to the people we love, and Emily Carr was the same. So today we're going to be combining the Emily Carr's artwork with postcards inspired by Emily Carr. So before I do that though, I wanted to show you what we did last week. So I'm just going to share my screen. And because last week was very fun. Every week is very fun, but last week we had, we were learning how to draw monsters, making monsters with our exhibit arts technician, our exhibit artist here, Megan Anderson. So here are some of the amazing monsters that were made last week from one of the classes from South Park. And then also, here are some more classes from around Victoria and the monsters. So you'll see there's some that's made from paper, some that's made from stuffies that were altered. We learned lots of different ways to make creative, scary and not so scary monsters in celebration of Halloween. So we're going to be making more art today. We'd love to see what you make. So share it with me if you can, or share it with us at the museum, the Royal BC Museum. With my email there, I'll put it in the chat in the comment section later. Keep exploring with us through our learning portal after this session. And then just to let you know, next week it's Remembrance Day. So we're going to take a week off with RBCM at Home Kids, but then come back the following week. Okay, so I'm going to stop my screen and come back. Well, you'll see people behind me are just taking a little bit of a video for a television program. So, so in this session, you'll be able to see me and you'll be able to see Jerry, but we won't be able to see you. But we can hear from you if you use the Q&A box or the chat or the comment section on Facebook Live. And again, we'll be making with postcards with cardboard and oil pastels and crayons, whatever you have to make postcards. So let's meet our special guest. So our special guest today is Jerry Engen. Jerry has been working in art education for over 25 years in elementary schools, galleries, museums, community art organizations, and teaching in her own private studio, Kudzu Studio. She's a firm believer in mistakes as opportunities and turning yowzas into wowzas. Jerry believes everyone, whether you are young or young at heart, is an artist. So we're so glad to have you here, Jerry.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, all of the film people have just left, so we're alone here now.
Okay.
So it's so great to have you here, and welcome. Did I capture your description of what you do and who you are?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I hope that everybody's working with us today. Don't be afraid of making a mistake. That's a great chance to use your imagination and your creativity and come up with something even better than you originally thought you would do. So that's something I really like to stress.
Great. So today we're going to be learning a little bit about Emily Carr and a little bit about postcards. What can you tell us about Emily Carr before we get into our work making postcards?
Well, Emily Carr, like I was saying, that from the time she was really young, she knew she wanted to be an artist. And Emily Carr, during the time she grew up, was a really unusual woman for her time. What we're going to talk about today is how she traveled outside of Victoria, which she was from, Victoria, BC. And that was not something that women really did. So one of the places that she went was over to Europe. She also studied in the United States, and then she traveled up and down the entire coast of British Columbia during her lifetime. So today we're going to focus on when she went to France, because that had a profound effect on her work. And how it changed her work. And she brought back a new style and a fresh way of seeing back to Victoria. And to be really truthful, people from Victoria didn't really like it that much. And a lot of people told her to stop painting that way. But what's very great about Emily Carr is that she continued to paint that way. She didn't listen, and she did what was right for her, which is something, again, that I like to stress with artists. You need to paint in your way, not like other people paint. And so because of that, she never really got any recognition until she was like 57 years old. So she painted most of her life for her own love of painting.
And then, so we're going to be making some art today. And one of the questions just came in asking if it's okay to actually use a card that we actually have, which is totally fine. Just like last week when we were making monsters and taking something that's already something and redoing it, you can definitely take an existing postcard and even draw over it if you like.
You are the artist, so you should do what you want to do.
Right. All right, so let's get into it.
Great.
So what would be the first step?
Do you want to show them? I noticed that maybe you have some postcards. Do you want to show them some of her work?
So I will show you. Oops, let's go from the current slide. Yeah, so up in the exhibition, there are some postcards that Emily Carr created when she was in France and sending it back. So this is being sent back from Victoria, from France. And it's really hard to read cursive writing sometimes. So, but I think it says, here's a lovely card. And that's all I could really read. But something about collecting, something about Friday maybe. But what we get a sense of is that she's writing, she's trying to connect back to people, she's taking a place that she really loved there and trying to communicate that back. And here's another one. So this church. So she's writing to someone that she cares about and is trying to sort of communicate her love of a place through postcards. And then in that same section of the exhibition is a painting that she made when she was in France around the same time. So this is a house in France. So again, like there's different ways of communicating love for place and space. So here's an example of this, both in painting and postcard form.
That's a great example of showing how her style was changing while she was over there. So I don't know if we can go back and look at it. You'll notice that there's differences between the photographs and the postcards that she sent and then her painting. She's doing something that I thought we would kind of take a closer look at today, which is called abstracting. So does anybody know what abstraction means, or should I just go ahead and tell you? Or
yeah, I think you can go right into it.
Yeah, so it's simplifying, changing the shapes, or simplifying the shapes and taking out details, changing the shapes, using an interesting line, and maybe different colors. These are all things that she was playing with. And I thought that that would be kind of what we would be inspired by today, is how we abstract a place that is special to us. I did a couple of them in oil pastel. So I started with this one, which was just a farmland, which kind of reminds me of my grandparents' place. And I was playing with maybe using colors and blending colors, and you can see trying to create some line work in there. And I really simplified those houses to just a real simple shape. But then I started playing with something local, which is the lighthouse that's not far from where I live. And because as an artist, I can decide what I want to leave in and what I want to take out, I simplified the composition. I changed, I made the lighthouse actually shorter and started playing with it. But if you don't have oil pastel, I also did one in crayon. So I just wanted to show you that you can also use crayon if you don't have oil pastel. The interesting thing about the oil pastel, if you did decide to send it in the mail, it might get scratched, which could be a really interesting experiment to see what happens to your artwork as it's going through the mail. So that's just something to know. If you don't want it to get scratched up, you probably want to do crayon. So I was going to work big today, just because I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing. You should use whatever materials you have. I did pull up.
We had another question about cards, whether they need a actual postcard. You just need to have paper or recycled cardboard or just something you can draw on.
Yeah,
I make a postcard and not even send it to, but if you wanted to have to send it, it just needs to be a little bit stiff.
Right, so I just used the back of a paper pad that I have. So I always save them and cut them, and you can see that there was some paint on it. By the time I finished coloring, that disappeared. You could use a cereal box. You can use whatever you want. If you want to do an actual drawing, then use your drawing pad. So it's whatever you want to do. But anything, I think Chris had a great idea. You could always cut it out afterwards and glue it down if you wanted to onto something else.
Great, so you're gonna start with, you're gonna use a bigger piece of paper.
I am, just so that you can kind of see what I'm doing. And I did actually find a photograph of the lighthouse I did, if you want me to share that, because I don't know if everybody knows what they want to draw. So if you wanted to draw the lighthouse, we could, or we could just start drawing. So I guess my first thing would say is to look for the shapes in what you're drawing, if you have a picture in front of you.
Yeah, I would say like start with the lighthouse, and then if people want to draw something else, that's totally fine. But you can use that as an example.
Absolutely. So I'll show you what I'm doing with the lighthouse, and I'll use the photograph, but you should use whatever you have that you want to draw, okay? And you do not need to draw like me. Is that okay, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. And we also had another question. Can you use markers instead?
Yes, please use markers. So yeah, you'll just kind of keep blending your markers as you go. So, I mean, I think the idea here is that you should use whatever material you have in front of you, and not worry about what I'm using. So I'm just waiting for my pen to come up. There it is. And I will use, I guess I'll go with pink today. So I'm going to start by looking at the lighthouse, because I figure I want to figure out where I'm going to put that. Now, your first artist choice is which direction are you going to use your paper? Are you going to go side by side, or are you going to use it long ways? So that is your first choice. And then I'm going to start with what shape I see here, which is kind of a rectangle. So I'm going to throw in a rectangle here. And then I see another rectangle on top and a triangle. So you can see me simplifying my shapes. Now, Emily Carr used to love to use different colors. So I'm gonna say maybe use a crazy color, something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. In mine, I think I'm gonna use red. So I'm gonna throw my rectangles in, my skinny one, and my triangle. And then if I look, what shape do I have here? I have a pretty decent square. So I think I'll throw a square next to that. And then here's another square, or I guess it's kind of a rectangle, isn't it? So I'm going to throw that in. And then we have that triangle that sits on top of it. So I'll throw that in. And then just a line that comes right here. Now, as an artist, you'll get to decide whether you want to put the chimney in or not. You'll get to decide how you want to put those windows in. Maybe that's something you want to add. And then look at all that other stuff that's there. Now I simplified mine, and I'm going to simplify it right now just because I'm thinking about time. And so I'm just going to then throw this shape in like that. And I think I'll throw that little island in there and then my horizon line. That is what I'm going to start with. So I'm going to come off share. And so you can see what I have. It's abstracted, it's different shapes. And I'm just going to start with my oil pastel, and I'm going to run it sideways. So you can see I've taken the paper off. I don't worry if they break. And I'm going to run straight across the top. And I'm going to start with blue, but I think I might throw some yellow in there at the top for sun, and then go over it with blue again. I'm going to challenge you that when you're using your oil pastels to try to come up with 3 layers of color. So look at how quickly I was able to get that in. Now you'll take lots more time than I'm taking, but I just want to kind of give you an idea of what you're doing. So remember, one of the things she did was play with line. So I might start, maybe I want to make it kind of a windy day. What would that look like? Well, what if I started making my line kind of go curvy like the wind? Throw some yellow in, maybe throw some red in, because remember she played with colors. So I'm playing with new unusual colors. So you kind of see what I'm starting to get there. And I might just come in with white. That was gray, not white. And kind of throw in a mountain shape. One of the things I read about Emily Carr once was that she said simply by changing her brush stroke, she can show the difference from sky to land or to sea. So maybe when I do the sea, I'm going to make that really straight across. Again, I'm just coming across like a truck. Just going to put that first color in. But you can see what happens when I start adding lots of colors. I start getting way more interest than when I just have one. Do we have to do the picture? No, you do not have to do the picture on the screen. Do not do the picture on the screen. You should be doing the shapes that you have.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, if you would like to use that as an example, definitely do, but you could also be looking out your window and do the same kind of thing, what you see in your backyard or in your living room. So.
Yeah, so you just want to find the shapes. I'm thinking blue's complementary colors orange, so I'm thinking about putting in some line work with just to kind of differentiate. But you see how the orange makes the blue pop? It also adds something a little interesting. So you want to kind of just look at the colors, and I'm going to challenge you to look to see what other colors you maybe see if you really start looking. In the water, sometimes I see some purples. So if I throw some red into my oil pastel and then go back over with my blue, suddenly I'm getting purples, which is maybe not a color you would expect me to color, but look at how that starts abstracting and adding some interest to it. So I kind of like what's happening there. I might add some more back here. And I think I'll throw in some white in places to lighten it up. But you can see by adding those layers, all that interesting stuff that will happen, right? And even when I get after 3 layers, I could use my finger to kind of blend it, which will smooth that out if I want to. Now you'll notice I did my background first. And the reason why is because I kind of want to go over where my building's going to be. Because when it comes time to do my building, it will be on top of my background and not have my background on top of that. So when I'm doing my house, well, it was red in the picture, but that doesn't mean I need to make it red. If purple's my favorite color, maybe I will do it purple. I am going to go ahead and throw that in with red. And I'm kind of going around those houses. But this is where you can start changing things if you don't like what you're going to do. I'm going to throw some green on the red on this side because I noticed it was darker. So again, playing with the complementary color of red, and that starts to make it, look at it already went darker, even though I just used the same red, I just put green here. So you can see how I'm playing with that. I'll throw some gray where I want the windows. Again, simplifying those shapes. Maybe put some white where the shutters were. Oh, look at how it's picking up that red. I love it. Now, I might decide I want to actually elongate that rectangle. I'm going to change it and make it longer because I feel like as the artist, it's something I want you to pay attention to. So, and I'm going to change the way I color to make almost like a half smiley face. And when I do that, do you see how it starts to make that look round? So I've kind of gone like I'm smiling, 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 smiling as I go around. And then come up here with the top. So you can see how already it's starting to look very abstracted. I'll come in with black to kind of bring that out. I put those lines in there. I feel like it needs that little point. So you can see how just very simply, and I'm really going kind of crooked, but that's okay. I can go with that because I'm abstracting and I'm kind of I'm drawing sideways.
It seems like that's part of it, Jerry, is that by doing abstraction, it sort of lets go of that idea about being perfect.
Yeah.
It has to exactly look like what you're looking at.
It doesn't. You're trying to capture like maybe the energy of the place or just kind of an idea of the place. Like it's very interesting because what was happening at this time is that artists were suddenly allowed to not draw things like they were like in a photograph because the camera was there. So people were able to start capturing things with a camera to show what things looked in real life, which really allowed artists to open up and start experimenting with different ways to express themselves. And that's really what you're doing here. You're expressing yourself about the place. I'm going to use green to outline my house because one, it adds something unusual that you weren't expecting. And I'm kind of changing that shape. But do you see how I'm starting to change that shape? Because I wasn't really happy with it. So don't panic if you're not really loving something, because with oil pastel and even with crayon, you can start coloring over it and change it. You see how I've already changed that and made that look very different than it was, which means I'll change that line. But you can see how you can really start changing things if you want to. So don't worry. Go ahead and have some fun and play with what's happening. So I threw in orange for brown. What? But if I throw some blue over that orange, I'll start to get a color brown. Emily Carr loved the color brown, and she said there were just hundreds of different colors of it. So, and she rarely used brown. She usually mixed the color herself. So if I put orange and blue together, I'll get brown. If I put red and green together, I'll kind of get a brown. And if I put yellow with a purple, I will end up getting a brown. All of them will be different browns. So experiment and see what happens when you use colors other than brown to create brown. Because look at that great brown that I ended up with. But they're all different varieties of brown, just plain. So I did that one pretty quick and simple.
Which is kind of how when you look at the ground, there's lots of different kinds of browns.
There is.
The brown and greens, and
yes.
So it really gets a sort of sense and feel of the ground that you're walking on. So.
Yep. And so when that's one of the things she did when she went to the forest. You'll notice if you're looking at some of her forest works or even her works in the show that you have, you'll notice that things aren't necessarily brown, but they're reds and oranges and purples, but they come in, they start to make those browns, or the same thing with the greens. She loved using those colors because she said there were so many different versions of them for us to see, hundreds of colors for us to kind of experiment and do. So made that back island. I'm going to add a bit of blue over top of it, and look again, like I have a different brown, playing with my lines and my shapes, and I can create something that way. So it's really kind of, are you supposed to be done at 11:30? Because I'm like, oh, I lost you for sound.
No, that's okay. That we
Okay.
can go a little over.
Okay.
One thing I was noticing is having that little island there also creates a depth of field too. It's almost as if you're gonna skip, like hop over to that island and then hop over to the mountains in the background. So
Yeah.
it really makes you feel like you can jump into this work.
And I really liked, there was a little boat in the front, but there was another building, but I thought the building kind of took it away, but I could throw in just a little boat down here, right? Like almost as if the person who's running the lighthouse wants to get away. So you can even see that even now, even with all that color, I can still add things over it. And I did the same thing when I did this crayon. I added that little boat at the end, just using a lighter color. So you don't need to worry about, oh, I forgot to do that. You could definitely add that. And if I wanted to, remember, I'm the artist, I could throw a tree in here, right? Who says I can't have a tree? So you can make all those.
Emily Carr loved trees.
She loved her trees, absolutely. So I might just throw it, and I'll throw some yellow into it. So you can see me making my own version of an abstracted tree back there, which is just kind of a brush of lines, which is kind of what she did, right? Things in the background would have less detail than the things in the foreground. Foreground is what's happening up here in the front. And this is kind of now getting toward that. This would be like my midground, and this would be my background.
So I have an idea, Jerry. If you you now have this work that you created, this artwork, if you wanted to create it to then send it as a postcard, because that's larger, you could cut out multiple sections and send it to the same person so they piece it together like a puzzle.
Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, like, so I could take, like, I was saying my postcards were like either a 3x5 or 4x6, but really postcards, you can check with the mail, but they will, in fact, a lot of artists will try to test what the post office will let you send through. So you could probably get away, but yeah, I could pick sides of it and cut it out. It would be very interesting for the composition too, what that would do, right? Because
you want to try that out and see?
Yeah, all of a sudden we have a whole bunch of different pictures. So let's see.
And it's one of the things these days is that there's not a lot of things that come through the mail. So for someone to get a postcard is a really exciting thing to get something in the mail from something, especially if it's art that they made. So I definitely encourage everyone out there with what you're making. First, take a picture of it so you could send it to us. And I'll put my email again in the chat and in the comment section of Facebook Live. Definitely send it to me, and I'll share it with Jerry as well, and share it next time we have RBCM at home.
Maybe they could even send it to you like as a postcard.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
You can see, look at how it changes the composition when I start to cut this apart, like from that big piece to something little. So I wonder if I can go sideways here. So yeah, here are 3 postcard sections I was able to create from that one drawing. So kind of the same size, you would start putting them together. What an interesting puzzle.
Very lovely too.
That would be, yeah. So like, yeah, you could do something big. And this is done on a cardstock. So I think you might even be able to get away with sending it just as is.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there you go.
If you wanted to send, we would definitely love to receive it here at the museum. But also think about someone that you love. We would love to get it, but think about maybe like a grandparent who lives far away, or a friend that doesn't live in town anymore. Definitely do that. I'm gonna just before we end, I'm just gonna share my screen one more time, because just as a reminder with, oops.
I see somebody asked if it has to be realistic. No, I'd suggest that it wasn't realistic. That was one of the fresh ways of seeing the world around her, was to not do it realistic, to look at how she wanted us to see what she was looking at.
Well, it's not quite working, so that's okay. But just as a reminder that that postcards, you just, in the back of the postcard, you would just need to put the address, the name and the address of the person that you're sending it to, and then get a stamp, or go to the post office and send it. It feels really good to send a postcard, and it also feels even better to get a postcard. So
that's kind of, I could send it to Chris.
yeah.
I put my stamp over here, and I could put, thanks for having me.
And I would send one back saying, thanks for being here, Jerry. So just for everyone, so you know, we're just going to finish up now, but Jerry has been kind enough to come back. So once a month, this is the first one, but for 3 months, we're going to do Emily Carr inspired art. Different ways of thinking about Emily Carr and making art. So this is only the first of 3 that we'll be doing. So definitely visit us again. That will be in the beginning of December, will be the next one. So again, we'd love to see your art. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a really nice group here in Zoom and also on Facebook Live. And reminder, the museum is open. And when you come, you could see Emily Carr art up in our galleries in the Fresh Seeing exhibition. So you could see those postcards I showed, but also get inspired by what she did, and use some of those skills that Jerry was showing you around abstraction and shapes. And yeah, just go for it and enjoy the process of making art, because that's really what it's all about. So thanks again, Jerry.
Oh, thank you. I had a great time.
All right, thanks everyone for joining.
Bye.